How many of us get an email saying that, hey, what's the sales, what's the budget, what's the variance like, and whatnot? We're still doing those manually. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just ask the question? We can do that with GPTs. So let's work with the exact example. But think about I'm going about my day and I get an email from one of my vendors looking for the status of their invoice, right? So again, I can go through, look it up, and do all that stuff. Rather than that, I could jump straight into my agent again and ask the question to the agent about what is the status of my invoice. It's thinking about it. So it has come back and told me this is waiting pending approval and its due date is May 7th. It's overdue and things like that. But as you can tell, this is demo data for it's what he's using. Now, from that perspective, this was helpful, but it would be nice if there was some form of automation that can help me get ahead of the curve and not even make me pull this up, right? So essentially, I don't want to wake up in the morning and go through that. That would be nice, right? See, I got a notification, and let's look at the notification for a second. It's saying that a vendor has requested a status of the invoice. Please review that. So there's the original one that I can go look into it. And it has checked something. It has checked the vendor has been validated, meaning that the vendor is correct. And after that, it has saying that it has validated the invoice as well. And it has actually written a draft of the email that I need to send to the vendor. Like what's happening here. So if we look into this one, and again, if you notice, this is not demoware, this is built over here. So we have an email as the email comes in, and we are checking if the email is for the invoice request or not. Based on that, it's going into the right workflow. It's checking if the vendor is validated or not so that we don't have people spoofing our data. And then we check the vendor. And in this scenario, the vendor is validated, the invoice is validated. It has come to an admin to approve the reply. So before we approve, if we wanted to see, we can click on it. If you notice, it'll directly open the email for me so that I don't actually have to clean my inbox from that perspective. And looks right. If I want to do a visual check, and then from there, I'll come back. I will approve the message. And if you notice, as soon as I do an approval, it has notified my text for my approval. And if I go look at the sent item for the email, you notice it has a reply to the vendor. We just saw the agentic AI in action. The question is, how do you build one? So let's go take a look at that. So we can start by creating an agent from blank, or we can actually give a prompt to create an agent. For getting started, in the short time, we'll kind of walk you through the high level of the agent, and then we'll talk you through each parts of the agent, how this is built. So this is the canvas for our Copilot Studio agent. Think about this is where this is built. And for us, just to do a quick overview, as you notice, we have the agent name and agent descriptions. After that, we're talking about which the model we are using. In our case, we're using GPT-5. And as you can notice, we have multiple other options to pick from. So one of the most important part of our agents is the instructions. This is where we give it context, how it behaves, how it thinks, and things like that. So from that perspective, for any kind of agentic work we are doing, think about instructions is the manual the agents work off of. So this is one of the most critical part of an agent. For instructions, if you notice, we have things to add from a knowledge perspective. We can give it knowledge from PDF and things like that. If you have policies and stuff like that, this is where this would go. In our scenario, we did not use a knowledge base. Rather than that, we used what you'll notice soon enough, we used a different agent. So technically, this is a multi-agent architecture. So after knowledge, think about we have tools, triggers. The thing about triggers you have to understand is this concept is very similar to if you're used to Power Automate. What triggers the agent? Is it a conversation with the agent, or is it being triggered by when we receive an email? So in our scenario, this is being triggered when we receive the email. And the tools are essentially, as we're logging stuff, doing some automations, those are done by Power Automate. And if you have been working on Power Automate, from that perspective, that will pay dividends. One of the things I want to cover before we go into the details, think about topics. This is essentially as it's having conversation, it understands what we're working on. So think about this way. We built out topics, the goodbyes and greetings comes with it, but how does it extract the data from the emails and things like that? That is the part we are doing here from a topics perspective. So with that, let's jump straight into the flow of the build of a Copilot Studio agent. So let's talk about triggers. Triggers is what starts this entire automation. And think about this way, the way you understand something is autonomous. This is an autonomous agent, meaning this is not triggered by me having a chat with it or things like that. Rather, the trigger is essentially whenever we receive an email, and that essentially is the simple definition of an autonomous agent. With that, instead of creating a new one, what we will do is jump and take a look at what it looks in Power Automate. So if you have used Power Automate, that's exactly simple. To keep it simple, what we have done, once the email comes, we want to pass that information to the Copilot Studio. And what we have done, instead of sending the entire email in an unstructured fashion, we have not done any processing. Rather, it actually gives the data in a very structured way. So if you use Power Automate, this is exactly the same environment. What we're doing, we're looking for a specific email address that is going to be monitored for the email. And what we are doing after that is passing that information back to Copilot Studio. Now, one of the things that is important to do over here is to design the information in a way that it's easier in structure. We don't need to do any kind of processing for it, but if you notice, the way the information is being passed is the information from what the header is, what the subject is, what the email body is, and things like that being pushed straight back without no processing. The good part is because the data comes structured, we know it's easier for even AI to process it to say, hey, who the sender was, what the subject line was, and what the email body is. The first topic, what this does is when this information is sent back from the trigger to the agent, it is taking the information and creating some global variables to store the specific information about sender, subject, and the body, so that we can continue to use it in other part of the agent going forward. You might have been wondering, what is this AI? So now, if you notice in this one, we're actually going to finally use AI. Think about, for most of the processing in the world, we need the data to be structured. Nobody sends you a structured email with things in specific order and things like that. And this is one of the beautiful way of using AI. Here, what we are doing is we are going to build a prompt that is asking the email body, is this person asking for invoice status? If it is asking for invoice status, can you tell me the invoice number? And as you notice, the way we are doing this, we kind of go through it. We can pick a model and stuff like that. We are asking this in plain English, how this prompt is being generated. If you notice the formatting, if you're at all using any instructions for any of the agents, the standard language is marked down. It's plain English, except just the formatting part that is marked down. We can test our question to see if the prompt we gave is correct or not. To test, just giving a random body with some information, it will see if it can extract that output for you. So one of the other things we need to make sure that just because we got an email, we don't want to get hacked or spoofed or deal with that part, right? So here we have created an action, and the action is checking this vendor, is that part of our verified database. Again, you're going to figure out master data, clean data. Your data is going to be key to your AI success. From that perspective, what we're doing over here is that the email that we received for the vendor is that from the correct email address that we have on file. So if we don't, it triggers a separate workflow. But in our scenario here, it is showing how you go check that. And once that's checked, it has checked what the vendor is asking for is so and so invoice, and we have verified that. So now let's get into the agentic AI. We're going to look at a tool. Again, this is Power Automate. One of the key parts we need to pay attention that some of the variables over here are declared. This is the one we stored, like email addresses and things like that, web ID and things of that sort, because you do not want the model to make a probabilistic decision here. And then the rest of it is up to the AI to generate those responses. As we go into it, the first thing we need to pay attention for a successful agentic deployment is that we have to have good logging, because it cannot be a black box not being able to trace what the agent is doing. So one of the part that we have to make sure that all this data that it's processing going through the steps are logged. So that's check one. When this is logged, now we have already got the information with the original email. This was for a vendor, invoice and whatnot, and we figured out this was for who and verified it. So once we're logged, the next thing we have to do, and this is again AI coming into action, where we're going to generate the email. So here, one of the other things we're going to have the tool needs to be able to do is generate email. So now from this information, I want you to go ahead and generate an email to this X, Y, and Z with the status from that perspective. And think about this way. This is something you probably use on a daily basis. Now, when the email has been generated, we need to do a few more things, because again, one of the other tips around success, we need to have human in the loop. If we build black boxes that is deciding on its own and sending without any verification, that becomes a challenge. So this is where the tool also goes to the admin and asks, say, I got the email, I have checked the right person, this is asking for this invoice, I have prepared this draft response. Do you approve to send? So essentially, this one is the one going for approval workflow. At the same time, this essentially takes it to the final step and goes and sends it. So now let's get to the chunk of the work. Here comes the instructions. For us, this is where we are telling the agent what to do. It knows the trigger, what triggered it, and then based on the instruction, it will run the tool, it will run the topic, and all the different things. From here, one of the things that we have not talked about before is how does it know what is the actual status of the invoice. And this is where we are using a Fabric data agent that essentially expands your Power BI into its next art from dashboard to dialog. This instruction is your brain that's firing the neurons to move your hands, your leg to go in the right directions. We did not hard code the flow. Rather, we let the instruction dictate which piece of the deterministic process to use to get to the end. And this is something will probably become general knowledge, but understand whenever you are working with AI, it's probabilistic, and we cannot have probabilistic workflows for finance and things like that. However, we should leverage probabilistic things to get to deterministic automation. And this is where we see highest value on return on investment for organizations. This is where we see the significant value for organizations. So if you are trying to start your AI journey, understand the difference between probabilistic and deterministic. And as you looked at the Copilot Studio, we used AI only when it was necessary, not just because we wanted to use AI.